Hello and welcome back to our tutorial. So when we were in class we didn't quite get this finished, so when I press play so I can right click and see my guy walking, and then I let go and he stops. So we didn't quite get to that point where we had some physics, so I was going to walk through some of the physics again, and then we're going to add a little bit to that and make it into something closer to a game. So how we're going to do that is we're just going to look at how the character is set up. So I'm going to go to my character. Now he's called Walk, which is not a great, so we'll call this Player 1. Player 1 he is. So what has he got in terms of physics? So he has a box collider, so this little green box that's going around him, that's his collision area. So we've added a box collider, and we haven't done anything with it, and then we've also added this thing here called a rigid body, and it's dynamic. So a rigid body just means that he will fall under the weight of gravity. He will behave as you would expect an object to behave in the real world. And thankfully for the beautiful people in Unity, that just takes all of the extraordinary complex programming that we would have to do to get this to behave in that way. That's all done for us. So we just have to add these two here, and this guy will fall under the weight of gravity and then land on another collider, and in this case the other collider is the ground, and it has an edge collider, which if you remember was a green line that went across it. So we can have a quick look at that. If I hit edit collider, you'll see the green line. Okay, so and this doesn't have a rigid body because we don't want this to fall. So that's sort of our starting point. So we didn't quite get that done in class, nor did we get this the ground made. So I might actually just delete this ground and we'll build that again. So we're going to right click and go add a sprite, and we'll rename it ground. So there's my ground sprite, that's it there, and it has nothing to render. So we'll click on this and we'll go down here, and I think we picked background, and I have a white dot here. It's actually quite hard to see, but that's it. And now I'm going to use my scale tools here. This is the transform properties of this object. So if I zoom out here a bit, we've no gizmos turned on to show us different axes, but basically left and right is X. So I'm going to scale this on X. Now it's bigger because it's kind of tapering off to the end, so I've made it significantly larger than the frame, but that's okay. Once I've done that, now I can click up here on these icons here. So this is the move icon, and I can just grab my yellow arrow and I can place it at the height I like. And then finally we had added a collider, and so I'm going to go add component. Be careful when you're adding physics in. So we're making a 2D game. If you just go to the generic physics tab, you'll be adding in three-dimensional physics, and Unity very carefully separates 2D and 3D physics. They actually can coexist and interact with each other, but for what we're doing, everything's going to be, initially anyway, is going to be 2D. And we're looking for an edge collider, which is this guy here. And the edge collider is, I think, in the right position. Let's press play and see if we land on it or in it. So that's not too, actually we're kind of in it, but it gives it a tiny bit of depth because we have a little bit behind us. So we'll leave that as it is. We could always go in and press edit collider and move it. So all good. So let's make a few more additions to our setup here. So we'll go back to our player, and if we remember, we'd put a script on our player that we'd made ourselves called player controls. So let's go to player control and double click on it, and it'll open in MonoDevelop. any second. There we go. Okay, so it's going to my second monitor, so there we'll move that across. So this is our script. I'm just going to hold down the control key and use the middle mouse button to zoom in a bit. So this is kind of where we'd gotten to. So we have a start function that we're not using, so we'll just delete that, get out of the way, and we can get rid of this commented section. So basically we had two variables, so speed, so the speed of our character, and then this one here for animator, which was, if you remember, this little guy here, this walk one animator, which is sort of the controlling platform of all the animations, which is in animator. And if I click on the player, it's all this stuff that we did. So setting up our animations. And then that allowed us then, once we have that called, connected, then we can say animator set bool walk is true, and we had set parameters up here for walk, so when it's true he'll walk, and when it's not true he'll stay still. Okay, so what we want to add in a little bit more to this. So at the moment everything works just lickety-boo, so we're going to go reference this other script here. This is one I've prepared earlier, and it's got all sorts of interesting things in it to switch animations. But the thing I'm most interested in is this guy here. So if I press the left arrow, so let's do that. So let's take this out so we can go in both directions. So Control C, and we're going to go over here. Now this is still in void updates. This is going to happen every frame, and we'll put it in here. We'll Control V. So if I press the left arrow, I'm going to have two curly brackets, and I haven't got two curly brackets there. I have the wrong brackets. Curly. So if you notice in this if statement, it opens the if statement here and it closes it there. And if I press this key, the things I want to happen in between these two curly brackets. And now I'm going to say if I press this other key, the things that I want to happen will happen between these brackets. So what do I want him to do? Well, I want him to move. Actually, we want him to walk. So we want to play the walk animation. Now there's a problem with the walk animation because he's pointing the wrong direction, but we'll fix that in a minute. We want him to move. So we want him to do that, but not vector2.right. We want him vector2.left. So if we click over here, you can see it says if I press the left arrow, move on vector2.right as well. So this one's vector2.right and this one's vector2.right. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. But the most important thing is we have this here. So local.transform, and it is x, y, and z. So he's flipped on y, which is the vertical axis. So I'm going to Control C and put that in there, which is cool. So it means that when I press the left arrow, he's going to flip. We'll save that and see if it works. Okay, so if there was a problem with my script, if I'd spelled something incorrectly, down here in this sort of little grey bar at the bottom, I'd get an error. It's saying there's a problem with your script. So I've got no problems. So I'm going to press play. My character should fall. And then if I press right, I move right. Now I'm going to press the left key. Fantastic. But I still have a problem. When I press the right key, now he's just moving in one direction. So I'm pressing right, left, right, left, right, left. So, and why is that? Well, that's because we're not flipping him back. So I need to take this here and put this in here. And then say right. When he's right, he's facing in this direction, so he's facing towards the right. And when I press the left key, flip him 180 degrees, so he's looking in the other direction. Interestingly, it flips the entire sprite, which is why we don't need to negatize the direction that the sprite's moving in. So it's moving basically in the direction that the sprite is facing, and we are flipping the direction that it's facing. So it's actually moving right all the time, just right changes because we're spinning around. So that is really cool. That means that we don't need a second animation for walking. We just have one animation, one set of frames, and it'll do both left and right, and that would go then the same for jumping, climbing, well, maybe climbing's wrong, but jumping, firing, anything that you would do in one direction, we can just flip it and do it in the other direction, and that saves us lots of animation time. Okay, so let's just see that in action. So we should be able to walk in one direction and then walk back in the other direction. So I walk this way, I walk that way, I walk this way, I walk that way. Okay. Now, so this is all good. We have made progress. So let's see if we can have a bit of fun now, just with the information that we've already sort of accrued between the last session and this one. So what I want to do now is make a couple of other objects so I can interact with them. So I'm going to make another 2D sprite, and I'm going to call this Cube 1 because I'm original, and we're going to move this sprite to here, and again it's got no it says sprite none. So the reason we're seeing nothing is because we haven't told it what picture to use or what color to use, etc. So we'll go back and we'll use our background again because this is just nice and simple. And there it is. You can see the little white box. So let's make it a bit wider and a bit taller. And that's maybe a bit too big, so we'll make it a wee bit smaller. And what we're going to do with this cube is we're going to add physics 2D. We're going to add a box collider, and we can see the box collider there. So that box collider is a little bit too big. So I can, oops, did that incorrectly. So I can go in here and it says 0.16, so I can go say 0.13 and do the same on this side, maybe it's 0.14. It'll give me a tighter fit. Yeah, so we'll say that there. And I'm also going to add physics 2D and add a rigid body, which is rigid body 2D. There we go. So I can press play now, and now I've got something to interact with. So it's got a rigid body and I'm a rigid body, and when I press my keys I've got force basically, so I can push this guy. Okay, so this is progress. We have an obstacle that we can move. So what we'll do is we will duplicate this. So so the easiest way to duplicate is to right click here and go duplicate, and then we'll rename that. We'll call it, because we're creative, cube 2. There's cube 2. And what we'll do with cube 2 is we will move it a little further out, and we'll move it down. Actually, we'll move it to about there, and then we'll make it a bit bigger. And you can see when I make it bigger, it expands the collider with it, which is fantastic. So let's press play now. So now I can push this cube up to that one, and then they're both going to move. However, if I select this cube 2 here and I remove its rigid body component, now when I press play, it still has a collider, so it still has collision in the same way the ground does, but it doesn't have a rigid body. It can't move. So now I've got a barrier that I can't get by. Okay, so but we've made progress. We're starting to make sort of little parts of a level. So let's have a look at what we'll do next. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just go back and revisit our script a bit, and we're going to make it just a little bit more like a kind of a platformer. So this is the script as it is. So I'm going to take this here, I'm going to go Control C and duplicate it and replace this with jump, because I want to be able to jump over things, and I'm going to give it a force of 300. Okay. Now these are not relative to each other, because one is a speed and sort of transforming as a vector left or right, and this one is going to be a force, and I'm not going to get into the difference between them now, but the numbers seem vastly different, and they'll end up moving approximately the same amount, but there's two different methods of applying movement. So I'm going to nip back into this other script here, and we're going to use this line of code. So get component rigid body 2D, so that our player has a rigid body on him, and it says add force vector 2 dot up multiplied by this number jump that we've just made. So I'm going to go Control C and go back to my script. Where does that go? Well, that goes if we jump, so I'll put that in there. And how do we jump? Well, we jump if we press the spacebar. So I'm going to select this, Control C, and jump over here, and Control V. Now I need to add, what do I need to add here? They're rounded brackets. I need to open the curly brackets, and then here I need to end my curly brackets. So basically I'm going, if I press the spacebar, add a force in the up direction, and this is how much we should, of a force we should add. Now this is far more complicated, and we'll get to this in terms of its jumping. It's got a thing called and grounded equals true, and I've got a direction as well. But this is interesting, grounded. We're not going to use that today, but what you may want to do is not allow the character to have a double jump or a triple jump, so basically jump off the screen. And sort of is grounded is a method of saying only allow the character to jump if it's in contact with the ground, so then it can jump once. And then if you try and jump a second time, it's not touching the ground, so that parameter or that condition is not true, so it can't jump a second time. So let's just press play here and see what we've got. So I can move left and I can move right, and I can push this guy, but more importantly, if I press spacebar, I can jump, and I can jump again, and now I can build a level. But you can see here I have now trapped myself, because my jump is just not quite enough force. Ooh, it is. But on a single jump I don't have enough force to get over, so you can see where is grounded would be helpful to make it a puzzle, whereas now I can press the spacebar twice in a row and jump off the screen. And you can also see that there's things we need to fix where I can do that. You know, I can fall over sideways and then the character won't be able to move anymore. So there's a whole bunch of things we can we need to work on. But for now, for this session, that's all we're going to do. So what have we done? We've recreated the ground. We've examined the physics that was added to the character, and we've added some extra information into this script to allow the character not just to jump, but also to move left and right, and to flip as we press the left key or the right key. And we'll do one more thing actually, because if I zoom in here, you'll see it. When I press play, you can see he has a little walk, and then he stops. And when I press right here, when I let go, I'm going to go let go now. He continues walking just for a split second. So I'm going to fix all that. I'm going to go into the animator here and select this one. And it says here has exit time. That just means it plays the animation all the way to the end, And what we want is it to stop doing that as soon as we let go of the key. So I'm going to uncheck that and do the same for this and uncheck that. So as soon as we let go of the key, as soon as the condition is met for this parameter, it will immediately stop the animation and revert to the other one, as opposed to playing out to the end. So now when I go back and I press play, when I stop, it stops. Okay, so that's a better looking result. Okay, so we're going to leave it there for now, and we hopefully will get this complete in class tomorrow morning. See you then.